Welcome back, guys. Today we have Tori in the studio. Tori is a certified practicing nutritionist who dedicates her expertise to assisting people burdened by chronic stress, understanding how such stress can manifest into numerous health issues. These issues range from nutritional deficiencies to fatigue, hormonal imbalances, and even challenges with mental health. The intricate link between stress and conditions like insomnia, inflammation, and more underscores the critical nature of her work. People often find themselves juggling numerous responsibilities. Amidst these demands, prioritising their own health frequently falls by the wayside. Tori's mission is to shift this paradigm, encouraging people to place their well-being at the forefront of their lives. Welcome, Tori.
Thank you. Hi.
So nice to have you.
Thanks.
How's your week been so far?
Yeah, good. Busy, but good. Yeah, loving it on the Gold Coast.
Baby scan yesterday, halfway through.
Yeah, 20-week baby scan.
Woo.
Yeah, halfway now.
She got those 3D images. I want to see that.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, she's like a little yoga baby all folded up.
So what size at 20 weeks?
What did she
like
say?
What fruit?
15 centimetres or something?
Oh, yeah, think of like a 30 centimetre ruler.
Half of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
So do you know the sex yet or
It's a
anything?
girl.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, so
bless.
exciting.
Yeah, I'm pleased it's a girl.
I feel
Should we
like
go into that? That could be an episode.
girl babies only. Well, it's so exciting to have a nutritionist on the podcast. It's the first. We haven't really done. We're going to be diving a little bit more into nutrition and naturopath and inner health and mental health. So it's really exciting to start off with yourself. However, before we start our podcast, we always, I'm not sure if Em's mentioned this to you already or if we're just throwing you in the deep end, but what are you grateful for and what are you celebrating? So we tend to do this just to help our staff.
So we pay our listeners and we call them staff.
Our listeners, that just to kind of like, life can be so busy and so much happening all the time and things can start to feel heavy and then we get taken out of the world of like, actually, we are so grateful, and bringing us back to reality a little bit in that sense and getting us grounded and being like, you know what, I have a great life regardless of what's happening right now. So
change the mindset.
Change the mindset, change
totally.
the lens that you're, I guess, like the glasses that you're seeing life through.
Yeah.
Change your life.
Yeah.
Change everything. It's not good enough. No, joking.
I guess what I'm celebrating is my so far healthy pregnancy.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm 20 weeks, so it's our first. It's really exciting. So I celebrate it. I'm also obviously very grateful for that. But I did take some notes last night, and I'm really grateful for. I have such a privileged opportunity to help people live better lives, which is pretty cool. So I really am grateful for that. I really value that.
Making impact.
And feel very lucky.
And your health is just such a key pillar into whatever you want to do in life. If your health isn't at, a solid baseline level, then you're really going to struggle in every aspect
and
of
it
your
can
life.
be debilitating, even just having poor sleep. Like, everything falls down after that and you just feel absolutely rubbish from just one small aspect of it. So, it's cool to see, some clients coming in and they're, pretty broken, and then after a few months they're feeling pretty amazing, and it feels really good. I mean, all the work is done by them, and you're just kind of there to guide them, but it's a really nice feeling.
Must be really rewarding.
Absolutely.
Excited to jump in and hear more.
Yeah, and so you're celebrating and grateful.
Yep.
And Emma, what are you?
I'm going to combine mine together today. So, I'm just like, I'm celebrating this year. It's coming up to my birthday. It's just been the most epic year. Like, it's just been so much fun. And coming up next Thursday, I'm flying back to New Zealand to celebrate my birthday there with some friends and family and a little snowboarding trip. And then I'm off to Burning Man.
So I cannot wait for the stories.
Oh, yeah. So, but I'm just celebrating that and getting to do all these cool things with amazing friends and, just making the most of the last year. It's, definitely practicing what we're preaching, maybe, getting the most out of life.
Yeah, no, I love. Yeah. I'm excited for you. You've got a fun-filled couple of months.
Might need a little rest.
You deserve.
Might need a little rest.
You're gonna need a little rest. I might need to
come and see you when I get back.
Definitely.
What about you, Jamila? Celebrating, grateful?
Celebrating. I feel like I need to come more prepared to these things.
No, I like when you wing it. We're probably going to get one about celebrating the weather.
I said that once.
That's nice.
I'm going to start with what I'm grateful for. I am grateful that I have the opportunity to look after my unwell grandparents next week, and for another, just over the next month. Grateful that I have the opportunity to say that I can help out, and they're obviously on their last leg, so be able to spend quality time with them. And I guess you just never know when is the last time. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be present with them. And I'm celebrating Evolve again this week, which is my business. Oh, cool. So I've just launched, I'm about to properly launch my little journal book it's kind of like a handbook / journal to just...
It's not little, it's epic.
It kind of is little, but it is epic. So I'm really proud of myself for kind of getting that get all organized, and my vision's definitely come to life how I wanted it to, and that doesn't always happen. So I'm really stoked with that. So that's me.
Cool.
Amazing.
Yeah. We'll have to put a link in the commentary below where everyone can get their hands on that.
Oh, yeah, easy. I created the link yesterday by myself, and I'm very proud of myself.
Very nice.
Yeah. Amazing. So, Tori, the purpose of our podcast is really to inspire people to create this life that they want, and whether that's following a dream or finding their passion, maybe getting away from their 9 to 5 and creating a career out of it, whatever that looks like. So in all that, if you're going into your own business and that, as I mentioned before, your health is just such a key pillar. Yeah. And if your health isn't at a certain level, when you go into a startup type situation, you're the CEO, you're the marketing manager, you're the accountant, you're the salesperson. There's a high risk of, a high chance of reaching burnout. Yeah. And I know you specialize in burnout. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about maybe how you got into that and why it is just so key to all aspects of your life? It's so true, particularly, if you are starting up as a sole trader, there's no one to pass something on to. You can't just sort of be like, oh, I'm not feeling well today, I'm going to, that task won't get done. You've just got to push through. Staff members.
Yeah. And so in my personal life, so I worked at a 9 to 5 or 7 a.m. to midnight. I used to work in the events industry, and I for 10 years, and I burnt out pretty severely and ended up needing a fair bit of time off work. We were talking earlier, I lost a lot of weight in not a good way. I was extremely unhealthy, and relying on coffee to wake me up, just sort of coffee throughout the day, and then alcohol to be able to sleep at night, just to switch the brain off. I just couldn't function. I do see a lot of clients in that realm now as well. And so I was fortunate enough to have a good amount of time off work, went travelling. We've got family overseas, so I sort of just, made it work financially. And I had a partner at the time who I'm still with now. And so I was able to be a bit supported through that as well. My family were really supportive. And then I eventually kind of wrote down what I wanted out of life. And I have a good friend in Japan who's a designer, and his technique is to write down 200 ideas. And so that's what I did. I wrote down, a lot of them were food related because I love food, and or dog related because I love dogs. And then nutrition kept coming up, and I was a vegetarian at the time, and I have always loved cooking, and I've always really been into the foodie world. And in the events industry, it was always hospitality world, and kind of, so it's sort of all mirrored. But my other major points that were important to me personally were that it had to be something that I could be healthy and well with and feel really good. And then from that, it kind of snowballed to being able to help other people feel really good and help them get healthy and well and not needing to rely on a glass of wine to be able to sleep at night.
So for our listeners who, I think the term burnout gets thrown around quite a bit, but for the listeners that don't exactly know what is burnout, can you explain what it is, what the side effects can be, how that can make you feel and be detrimental to your life?
I mean, it can manifest in many different ways. Me personally, it was like my brain, we were actually talking earlier that I've just started to get that baby brain where I'm forgetting things, and I normally have a very good memory, and so I don't forget much usually, and but during my burnout, which some people call kind of adrenal fatigue, it can be kind of labelled as all sorts of things. It's not a technical diagnosis really. And it can be kind of seen as a little bit wishy-washy with some, as particularly medical doctors and things.
Definitely.
In some of the medical world, not all, but and then so for me it was definitely affected my brain, and I left my handbag at the shops, which I would never do. I walked out in front of a car because I just forgot to look.
Wow.
On the street, it was just kind of all consuming, and then. Nutrition-wise, I wasn't really eating at all, kind of just forgetting to eat. I probably wasn't going to the toilet for maybe once a week and not really even knowing that was a thing. I was hardly sleeping. It kind of just was almost like body shut down.
Yeah, because essentially it's chronic stress on the body, right? So with my breathwork and meditation, I teach and do workshops around stress management. Yeah, and so I always talk about what is stress, and so it can have it has a physiological response, and so on the body, increasing your heart rate, your breath becomes shallow, also causing imbalances, disease, autoimmune diseases, but then mentally as well, when you're in that sympathetic state, that fight or flight for a long period of time, you become very narrow focused and you're focusing on that perceived threat. So, you're not open-minded. There's so many studies that have shown that your communication levels decrease in collaboration. But then it's your emotions. You become really irritable, very, the highs and lows.
That's a the emotional side was crying at the drop of a hat. And,
gosh.
Am
I going through burnout? I cry a lot.
But then, then it also affects so many other aspects of your life, your sex drive, your sleep. But then all of that, then if you look at it, that affects everything. That affects your work, that affects your relationships, it affects your friendships, it affects how you respond to, the day-to-day people you meet. And
it's even a bit of a vicious cycle too, because, you touched on it with the sympathetic nervous system dominance.
Yes.
You don't, if you kind of think back to caveman days, and if we were, if you kind of talk about women for a second, if we were sat around here chatting nicely and there were maybe kids and stuff and feeding and we're preparing a meal, we wouldn't be doing that if there was a lion nearby. We would have that hypervigilance about us, and we would either run away or die, or fight the lion, whatever. But we wouldn't be sat comfortably enjoying, or we wouldn't also be having sex, because it's just, we wouldn't be reproducing because it's too dangerous, particularly if there was, say, a famine or a fire or a flood. We would be on the move. We wouldn't even ovulate because it's not useful to have a baby in that time. It's too risky. We wouldn't be able to support it. So
go into that survival mode.
Absolutely. And so having that chronic stress, even though today's chronic stress or today's stressors are completely different to, a lion in the bush. It's still, and you touched on it before, that perceived stress, the chemicals are still the same. We haven't evolved with that yet. We still have that. It's the deep part of our brain that's our instinct, and that's the one that pumps cortisol. And it's the exact same chemical as it was back in the day when we were running away from a lion.
But now the thing is this, back in the day, primal days, the lion only would have come about I don't know, let's say once a month or whatever. Yeah. But now it's we wake up to this alarm that's like, and that's a stressor. It puts us in our fight or flight, and then
the line's already there.
The line's there. Then we look at our inbox,
Yep.
and we have so many messages, more lions, and then we get in the car and we go to the gym and we do some hectic workout that puts us in a more stressed state.
Add coffee into that.
Yeah, and then we, probably don't eat properly, stresses the body, and then we get in the car and someone cuts us off. And so it's like, but I don't know, what are your thoughts? I feel like these days as well, people almost wear this busy stress.
As success.
It's like, I'm important, I'm busy. Yeah. But when I hear people say that now, I look at them and I think, probably quite stressed.
And I think there's a big difference between kind of being busy and being stressed, and like it's that perception. And I've definitely had to shift because my mum went through burnout as well, so I think it's just in my blood. Damn. And that I've had to shift that perception of, I've got a whole inbox full of emails. And, 2-3 years ago, it would have really stressed me out, and I would have felt my heart beating and probably gotten a bit like sweaty palms, and like, you just feel a bit yuck.
Tense up.
Yeah, and you tense up and you're just like, oh, and then I'm not that productive anyway. So like it's not that useful. Sometimes it is, if somebody cuts you off in a car, that's when the chemicals kick in because we react before really thinking. That's where our instinct is. Or if we have, we sense someone following us home, that's a really useful part of the brain that we can use for that stress moment. But it shouldn't be all the time. And to get to that point where, like you said, we wake up already stressed because the alarm's horrible. And then, and everybody usually wakes up and checks their inbox or text or whatever it is. I've got, 5 or 6 different ways people can message me now, like, Instagram and emails, and I've got 2 or 3 different emails and
texts
and missed calls, voicemails,
so many different platforms.
It's just constant. And then, there's even, Australia Post still exists, and there's letters coming in, like it's an old school one, but
your fax in the office.
But it does all kind of come back to that our brain is just being fired constantly, which is definitely not normal, not what humans were designed to do. We should, like you said, deal with the problem and then come back to that state. And we don't need to be in that calm parasympathetic state all the time, because it's not that productive.
Yes.
There is somewhere in between, but I talk a lot about like the flexibility of being able to jump into that, pumped up, let's get some stuff done, and then coming back to that calming state.
And also like seeing the trigger, like looking at your inbox and then maybe going into that stress state, but then having the tools to be able to pull yourself back.
That's it. Yeah.
So for listeners listening to how you've described that, that are listening and being like, oh my God, that's me. Like all of that triggers stress within me.
Yeah.
I'm definitely, whether it's burnout, I'm definitely stressed. I've got a lot on my mind. What are some things that they can listen to right now and take away straight away to start implementing to support, like kind of getting out of, obviously coming to see you would be a good first step, but maybe 3 tips or tools that they could potentially do to have the awareness that this is happening. I need to kind of, like you say, get out of that.
Make a change.
I think the first step is that awareness, and obviously I would love to see everybody, but really with people in these sorts of states of mind, and they would have a lot on, be very busy, and there's not a lot of downtime. Like a lot of them don't even have time to go to the toilet. I hear that often.
Really?
Yeah. It's
I kind of get that though, because like if you're in the flow, like I've done that. I'm like can't go. Like if I break, especially being ADHD, and like if I get distracted, it's going to take me a long time to get back to this point. So I'm like, keep going.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah. It's so those sorts of people, they don't have time to come and see me like that, that, and they're not ready to kind of change it. But the things that I think are probably the most important basic starting points is sleep. Sleep is huge. If somebody is in that hyper stressed, even kind of almost anxious stress state where they get a bit shaky, coffee's not really their friend for the moment. I know a lot of people are not going to be happy about that.
Yeah, because what you think, you have a bad night's sleep, oh, I need a coffee to get me through, but that's just like hitting the adrenals,
That's
right?
it.
What about, like, what's your opinion, sorry, a little bit off track, but like decaf?
Yeah, I mean, you can get the Swiss water filtered. It's important to try and find that one because the other stuff is quite chemically.
Yeah, that's what I find.
Yeah.
Like, if it's not the caffeine, it's the chemicals. And either way, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. Look, I always try and just, I really do try not to take coffee away from people. Like, it's not, otherwise they absolutely hate me.
It's such a cultural thing as well.
Yeah. I'm from Melbourne originally, so I do drink coffee, but I do take breaks, and I do try and encourage people to take breaks, particularly that stressy, anxious type. If they're not sleeping, if you're anxious, you need to have a break off coffee. Whether it's cold, depends on how many. Like, I do see some people that have like 6 or 7 a day.
What?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Like coffee bought one. I mean, cafe bought one.
Yep.
That's a lot of money too.
Yeah.
Oh, but how many? Wow.
A lot.
And
It's a
milk?
lot. Yeah.
Do they sleep?
No.
Okay.
They're just laying there with their eyes open.
Or they might be the ones that use alcohol to help. But even that, so that has a huge impact on our sleep as well. Alcohol helps us fall asleep, but actually the studies show it creates a really poor quality of sleep.
Right.
So, yeah, when I was kind of, at my worst, I would, have a few glasses of wine before bed, but I would regularly wake up at 2 a.m. and be awake. So I'd fall asleep easy, but I'd be awake at 2, and then that was it. Like, you maybe could get back to sleep at like 5, but then you've got to be up at 6. And that's a really regular pattern that it just disrupts, again, that nervous system and the sleep-wake cycle.
It's such a vicious cycle, hey? Then coffee to get going through the day, then wine to put you to sleep, then not
carbs
sleeping.
throughout the day. And then if you do have poor sleep, so either poor quality, not enough, even, snoring and things is a sign that it's the quality, it's not that you're not getting enough oxygen to the brain. You actually the brain needs more carbohydrates throughout the day. So when you are tired and you tend to crave more carbs, it's because the brain needs it.
Right.
So it does end up being like this bit of a vicious cycle. So then you are more likely to choose less nutritious choices. Not that carbs are bad, but more like the processed carbs and toast.
I've
and
definitely done that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you just kind of need it to get through, and it kind of makes you feel good at the time, but then you end up crashing because then you kind of need another coffee because you sort of got to get your work done, and then you get to kind of dinner time and you've not really had anything that nutritious throughout the day, and you're exhausted, and then. So you get Uber Eats, and then
what's the body absorbing? Like, there's no nutrients to absorb from toast or pasta or whatever it is that you're smashing. Okay, so sleep. So sleep's key. Yeah.
So sleep is one, and the major things that are helpful are coffee and alcohol to try and at least cut back. Even just with alcohol, it depends on where someone's at, but at least having 2 to 3 days off in a row, just to start with. Is kind of a nice sort of starting point. And with coffee, depending on how many you have, weaning down, you can try and swap it out for decaf for a while. I mean, I tend to switch. I sometimes get decaf. I'm pregnant now, so I'm trying not to drink too much coffee. But I find it rubbish.
Yeah, it's not the
same. It's not as good. So I'd rather have like a turmeric latte or
something that's giving, I guess, giving you some health. So
another little green tea is a really good one. It does have caffeine. It's a lot less caffeine than coffee, but it also has a amino acid called L-theanine that helps regulate the shaky effects of caffeine. And it's really nice for stressy people. So that's a nice way to start to wean yourself off.
Okay,
and just replace it with a green tea or like a matcha.
Yeah. So you're kind of saying evaluate, have the awareness of your sleep patterns, make sure you're getting enough oxygen, cut back on alcohol for at least 3 days straight, and then either do the green tea or switch from coffee to decaf, but kind of avoid to kind of regulate that nervous system and get you feeling a little bit more calmer and relaxed.
Okay. So in my opinion, the sleep is probably the biggest one that I always try and work on with people. The other one would be a bit of breath work, meditation ideally.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know if other people can relate to this, but when I was really, really stressed and somebody told me to meditate, I wanted to punch them in the face. I was like, you are kidding me. There is no way that my brain can slow down. And then I did try. I went to a couple of classes and I would just fall asleep really quickly. I couldn't be in that in-between state. I was either like absolutely wired or passed out.
Yeah. It's super interesting. So that, like, the clients that I work with, if I know that they're in that stress state and have been for a prolonged period of time, I wouldn't recommend meditation, because when the mind is so busy and you switch all the other stimulus off, that is so confronting.
It's quite scary.
Yeah, but whereas if you're using something like breath work, then you have a tool, you have something to focus on. So you're focusing on the breath, you're not necessarily focusing on these hectic go thoughts.
I find that really nice. So I often I find the 3-4-5 breath quite useful. It's simple, which is just you inhale for 3, hold at the top for 4, exhale for 5. So and there's a lot of studies behind lots of different breath work, but that one particularly, having the, which you would know all about this, having the longer exhale. So when we are in a calm state, we go and we exhale, and when we're stressed, we go, we like sharp take in breath in. So exhaling for slightly longer has been shown to start to calm that nervous system down. And because you're counting, you're sort of in it. So, I mean, I just get my clients to do 5 rounds, which is 1 minute daily. That's it. Just a really small step to just start to bring that in.
And such a fantastic tool as well to use, you know, before you're going to bed to help with that sleep, or, you know, for men when they're integrating between tasks, having that, right, let's just like a minute reset. And
even for digestion, there's been a study came out recently with people that had a lot of food intolerances, food sensitivities, not allergies. So people that might, you know, if they eat garlic and onion or cabbage or cauliflower, they might get gassy and uncomfortable, like IBS type symptoms. So it's not an allergy, it's a sensitivity, and doesn't make it less real, but they did a study where they got these people to do this breath work before eating a meal, and they were finding a lot less symptoms, finding that they were able to tolerate the foods.
Oh, I'm going to do that.
A lot better.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'll need to look into that.
Just from breath work. And so, they're saying that it can actually affect the microbiome and affect how we digest food, which is...
I fully agree with that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, because it makes sense really, because if you're... so I've done quite a bit of Ayurveda study. So if when you're in that parasympathetic state, your rest and digest, the blood is in your extremities, so the middle of your body, so your organs all function the best. So you know, your kidneys, your liver, your digestion. But when you're in that fight or flight, the sympathetic nervous system, the blood goes to your extremities, so your legs, your arms. So you go into that literally like survival mode. So the blood's not in this middle part of the body, so your organs aren't working, so your digestion isn't as working as well as it can. So it makes sense, I guess.
Yeah. And I even see like another kind of physical aspect that gets kind of thrown around a lot is reflux can be quite a common symptom of like chronic stress, and the mechanism behind that is it's fascinating. The mechanism behind it is that when we are sending blood to our digestive system and we are in that relaxed state, we trigger all these enzymes, and we trigger our stomach acid to produce acid, and it's meant to be very acidic. So it's meant to be, I think it's 3.5 pH, which is as acidic as a car battery. So it's and the point of that is all the chemical reactions take place in that chemical acidity, and so when we're less acidic, so when we're more alkaline, which, you know, people love that word, it's a bit of a health trend at the minute,
I was going to
drinking
say,
alkaline,
so
whatever.
trendy.
It actually causes hindered digestion, so our food sits in the stomach for a bit longer because it's not getting broken down correctly, and then it eventually needs to go through the intestines, so you kind of end up sending larger chunks of food through your intestines and your digestive system, so you end up with things like bloating, and it's harder to actually break it down and take the nutrients out of those bits of food. And then the problem with it is that a lot of people kind of feel sort of acid reflux, and it's this you've got food sitting in your tummy, in your stomach, and so they might take an antacid, which then further reduces the acid in the stomach, and then it's like this vicious cycle of So the breath work has been shown to help increase acidity in the stomach, which is a good thing.
Increase
to help
digestion, more nutrients absorbed, less bloating.
That's a really good tip, and probably something that people haven't heard a lot of. Like, yes, breath work, of course, but before dinner. I think that's great. I'm definitely. What did you say the technique was? It was in for
the 3-4-5.
3-4-5.
Inhale for 3, hold at the top for 4.
Yeah,
and then exhale for 5. So it's kind of like a triangle breath.
Oh yeah.
But
and do that 5 times.
Yeah.
Juice.
Thanks. My husband's a scientist, so he would be annoyed at me for not getting it right.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
And so obviously we spoke about at the start of like your health, your nutrition being just, such a key pillar, but also in terms of like helping performance. And if our listeners, like we promote trying to get the most out of life, and in order to do that you need to be your absolute healthiest, and your body, your mental state. So as like to avoid burnout, we've spoken about that, 3 key areas to look at, but then to reach like optimal peak health, do you have tips or anything that your key
Great
areas
question.
to look at?
Totally. I think it's good to be informed. Like, I think a lot of people are kind of a bit scared to go and get their bloods done. Most GPs, if you've not had bloods done for a long time, it's good to see where you're at. So, particularly for women, we menstruate, so we lose a lot of blood. So our iron is always a bit rubbish. If you're a vegan or a vegetarian or any other kind of diet, even keto, things that restrict large food groups, you may be nutrient deficient. And so, B vitamins, essential fatty acids, all of these nutrients that are vital for our function help us perform our best. Our brains use up a lot of energy and use up a lot of nutrients. So I would suggest looking into getting some bloods done. You can get them privately, so you can just pay for them. There's a company called iScreen. It's like, and they do just online, and you can just pay for your own bloods. They print out a script and you send them. It's not that cheap, but you can just go to your GP and say, I'm feeling fatigued or brain foggy or whatever it is, and they can run some bloods for you. Yeah,
GPs will only test like a subset though, right? Because I get that done each year, like the private one, just to see where I'm at.
Yeah.
But because I was told that the GPs will test like the common areas.
So they have a lot of boxes to tick because it's all covered on Medicare.
Yeah, of course.
And so they need to justify with, there might be a family history, or depending on your symptoms or, your diet or what other presentations. Some GPs feels like there's less boxes to tick and some don't. But what I tend to do, particularly with those on a budget, is maybe go and see a GP and have a chat and say, I've seen a nutritionist and she's concerned for these nutrient deficiencies. If they're not happy to do it, that's fine. What I get them to do is come back and then I can just write them a private script. Or you go to something like iScreen.com or whatever it is. And just top it up. Kind of thing.
It's so smart because it just takes the guesswork out of everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a few like gut things going on and I was like, people were like to me, maybe it's gluten, maybe it's like FODMAPs, whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. I could try trial and error and cut them out. But instead, someone told me about this blood test you can go get done and it actually shows you your intolerances.
Yeah.
So I had it done and it's amazing. So
yours were so unexpected as well, weren't they? It's like carrot,
wow,
coffee, almonds,
wow,
chocolate, cacao, kiwi, oysters. Not happy about that. I'm going to lose my oyster friend.
No, I'll be back.
Yeah.
But the point is that it might be expensive to get it done.
Yeah.
But it takes the guesswork out. Then you know exactly what is harming your gut and what you can remove to heal the gut and then make yourself, feel better and perform better
I
optimally.
agree. Because, I feel like I've done that. Like, I'll go to a GP after, seeing a nutritionist or naturopath, and they just, I don't know, they just don't give you that you kind of like get the results back and it's like, oh no, you're all sweet. And I'm like, no, but I'm not. So I think like for anyone that has been battling or like haven't been able to figure it out for some time, I would highly, highly recommend doing. It is so worth spending that little bit extra.
I agree.
To understand what's going on so that you can fix it faster.
Yeah. And I think as well, I don't know whether it's kind of shifting, but I think a GP, they play a really important role in our communities. But with things like chronic, low-lying, not life-threatening, but it's life quality, and even like preventative health side, I think that's shifting more towards a nutritionist or naturopath because we have more time available. Like our sessions are usually anywhere between 60 and I know a lot of naturopaths do 90-minute sessions. Like a doctor's got 15 minutes. Yeah. And they might never have seen you before, and a lot of it's just kind of to get your script refilled or whatever that is. They can't get that whole history from you, and then there's other people that need, like, they're kind of usually understaffed, and so it's kind of I think they definitely have a place, but that they are looking, I have read that they're looking at doing a reform of the blood testing, and because it's become so expensive, it's costing Medicare a lot of money. Because when we book it ourselves privately, it's not cheap. It's sort of, if you're doing a full panel, it's maybe expensive. $400.
Yeah, I think mine was like $500.
Yeah, which I'm pretty sure that's what Medicare get charged every time. Like, so it's there needs to be a bit of a shift, or maybe around education and where we need to kind of, who we need to see, really.
I agree.
There are a lot of integrative doctors out there as well, and a lot of like naturopath turned doctors, or doctors that are studying naturopathy or nutrition, things like that as well. So I think it is getting a little bit better, but it's still, it can be hard to advocate for yourself.
So going back to performance then, so anything else? So looking at your bloods.
Looking at your bloods. In terms of diet, which is a long process, but I try and get people to work towards what we call intuitive eating. So where it's like, where we kind of get to a point that we understand what we need to eat and what we eat, how that makes us feel. So, for example, that might change day to day, week to week, and particularly for women with our cycles. But I definitely go through stages where I just like can't get enough fat. So like I'm just olive oil, avocado, and I need like oily fish, and like to feel satisfied and full and comfortable and energetic and and all the good things. And then sometimes I feel like I can't tolerate protein so much. So I'm like, trying to get it in, but it feels a bit of a chore. So I sort of maybe go more plant-based for that day, and I'm a bit off meat for a time, and my body kind of changes and shifts. And then there's some days where you get it wrong and you eat like, a big bowl of porridge, but you didn't get enough protein or fat with it, and you're absolutely starving an hour later. You're like, oh, whoops, that didn't make me feel very good, because I didn't combine the things that make me feel really good. So rather than trying to follow a strict diet per se, it's more trying to get to a point where you feel comfortable knowing what you need to eat, that's a huge process. What I try and start people off is eating regularly, particularly those really stressed clients, is having 3 meals a day with some small healthy snacks in between, and like intended snacks, and not getting to the point where we've not eaten all day. And then you get to kind of 2-3 o'clock, and you've got to have, 3 croissants and a coffee, and just anything you want to just eat your arm off.
Pasta.
Anything you can see, and then you feel absolutely rubbish, and you crash after that. So having that regular, fairly nutritious, I try and work on the 80-20 rule, like 80% whole foods, even 90% if you want to. We live where we have fantastic food available here, and 10%, a few treats here and there, like you can live a normal, healthy life doing that. But I think it's important to try not to follow such strict rules around eating, unless they serve you fine. If you're a celiac, obviously, you need to not eat gluten. You need to be careful with that. But, I think a lot of the trends that come in and out, like, fasting, keto, Atkins, all of the things that have come out over the years, if people are following them and they feel good, fantastic. But if they're following them and they're not feeling great and they're, you know, say fasting, for example, and they're really struggling to get to 11, 12 o'clock and they're shaky and a bit dizzy and irritable and, you know, snapping at everything, maybe it's not for you, you know. And so I do try and get people to, I call it like a little food audit, like a food rule audit. So kind of writing down, because there's so much information out there. We hear so much. So I try and get people to kind of write down everything they sort of believe to be how they eat or, you know, what they follow. And some of them might be contradicting. You know, some people say, you know, no carbs after 3, and then, you know, but I've got to get X amount of fibre in the day, which like doesn't quite work. Fibre is a carbohydrate. And so, yeah, if you can write it all down and then go, okay, that one serves me, you know, eat your vegetables. You know, we all learned that one as a kid. But finish everything on your plate. That's a really common one as well. So some people might, you know, overeat a little bit because they've always had that drilled into them to finish everything on your plate.
That's me.
Yeah.
You can't leave the table until everything on your plate is gone.
Really? And so you do that now?
Yeah.
I just eat so much.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's a huge thing. Like, I think the longest I've sat at the table was like nearly 3 hours.
When you're a kid?
Yeah. Not from mum, but my granddad. He was super strict on it and like eat proper, like eat the right way.
Guess
like,
what, Grandad? The tables are turned.
Yeah.
Jamila's looking after you.
Yeah, watch out. It's on. You can't move.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, kids, we have that innate ability as children to self-regulate, you know.
That's a really interesting one.
Yeah, but we lose that ability over time because, you know, we learn different things and we hear different things and we're conditioned. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it's fascinating. You know, and we know that now with kids, and my family were the same. You know, I stopped eating meat as a kid because I just couldn't do it. It was too chewy and I hated it.
It takes so long to eat.
Yeah, and I used to like, you know, I'd have it in the side of my mouth and I'd go to the toilet and spit it out and then
I used to do back. These ones. Like, and then I'd clean up the floor.
Yeah, our dog was too well behaved to come in the kitchen, but I was just like, get in here so I can.
I've got some food for you.
We didn't have a dog, so it was like under the chair.
Yeah.
They'd go do the dishes and then I'd put it in a napkin and chuck it in the toilet.
Yeah, it's traumatizing. Yeah.
Mum and Dad were really chilled on me. Just like, do you know what?
But you're very balanced with your food. Like I'll sit there and I'll keep going. Like you're like, you know when you're done.
That's the other thing that I try and get people to do is slow down.
Yeah, okay.
That's a big one as well. So I don't know whether it was the same people that did the study on the breath work, but they did it. There's been studies out there with the speed at which we eat and the health outcomes with that are really positive when you slow down.
Right. Okay,
even for things like, you know, heart conditions and diabetes and metabolic conditions. And then again, it's like digestion starts in the brain, you know, like if you can imagine, you know, a big, beautiful bowl of salt and vinegar chips and like that always just like makes my mouth melt. Like I'm just salivating and you can like imagine tasting them. And like like your brain's doing that. Your brain's like there's no chips here. Like your brain is telling you you're ready to eat. So like, you know, you're starting. I'm really dribbly now.
We'll get you some salt and vinegar chips.
That has been a pregnancy craving. And so then, you know, and then chewing is equally, if not a bit more important. Because like we were saying, once things get to the stomach, you need to have that acid to break it all down. If you've chewed it thoroughly with enough salivary enzymes, it's much easier for the system to kind of start to break that down from, you know, a smaller chunk in the stomach than to a lesser chunk in the intestines, and it gets broken down further and further and you absorb more from your food.
Yeah, more nutrition goes into the body, more energy.
That's right.
Better performance.
Yeah, that's right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I feel like I could keep talking
I
for
was
another
literally
5 hours.
Like, I'm not finished. I'm not finished.
But can we wrap up with like, you know, is there one massive like key takeaway tool, some key piece of information that will help our listeners, you know, to go on this path of creating this epic life that they want, you know, with great energy levels, good health, happy people. Yeah,
it's hard to summarise it up.
Put you on the spot.
No pressure.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm such a huge advocate for, you know, if people are considering, going to take that leap, just do it. I mean, for me, it's been unbelievably rewarding. I never thought I could get to a space where I, could run my own business from particularly where I was, and doing something that I love, still now, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I think prioritizing yourself and, learning to say no, I think is really important as well. And yes, celebrating those little wins with yourself, really standing up for yourself and saying, I don't feel good today. Why is that? And looking into that and then looking after yourself in a genuine way. Some people kind of feel that it's selfish to kind of, be like, oh, I can't do that today because I'm too tired and I need to rest. And people would be like, oh, well, that just don't do it. Or you would never say that. You would just be like, you'd make it up an excuse and say, oh, I can't come today because I'm too busy. But actually, to just say, do you know what? I need to rest, or I need a break. I need just to get my feet in the water or something. And actually listening to that and then acting on it is probably one of the hardest things to do. But
it's so funny that we're so much harder on ourselves than someone else. And a bit of advice I always give is what would you say to your best friend?
That's right.
If your best friend was in that situation, what would you say to him, her, whoever it might be, and then give yourself that love and kindness.
That's right. Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of, in terms of self-employment, I don't know if you talked about this before, but there is a self-employment assistance program through the government. And you can get a job seeker type payment. And I think it's for 9 months.
What's that for, sorry?
Self-employment. So if you are starting up a new business, you can get support through this, we're so lucky where we live, you can get support through the Australian government and actually get on a job seeker type payment. So financially, you can do that through while you're setting up.
Epic. I didn't know that. I'll have a look into that. I'll put the links down below.
And so there's even a program which is completely free where you can help you write a business plan, and they help you to tell you whether it's valid or not, a viable business plan, and help you set up finances and things like that.
We'll have to grab all the links for those for sure. We'll chuck them down the bottom, in the little bio for everyone.
Absolutely.
And there's lots of grants and things available too. There is a lot of support out there.
It's a good reminder for everyone.
There
are ways to kind of support you to.
And also you don't have to leap in 100%. I worked casually a couple of days a week while I was starting up as well, which I enjoyed because it was a bit of human time.
Oh my gosh, a story of my life right now.
So
it's always an interesting. Sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, there's a few ways to do it.
It's always an interesting. I would love to discuss that with guests on whether they believe in, taking one step in or going all in. We've had some different views, but it's epic. But Tori, thank you so much for coming on. And where can our listeners find you and your clinic?
I'm based in Currumbin Creek Road. Gold Coast, thank you. And my website's nirvananaturalhealth.com.au.
Amazing.
So there's a lot on there.
Perfect. Thank you. That was epic. I know I learnt a lot, and I'm sure our listeners will as well. So thank you for helping us start this journey of inner health. And that obviously leads to creating the life that we deserve.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.